Have you ever looked into a mirror and wondered if what you were seeing was truly you? What if the reflection staring back at you was someone else entirely, slowly becoming something you didn't recognize? That was the thought that haunted me as I stood in front of the antique mirror I found in the attic of my new house. I had just moved into the old Victorian home a week ago, a place that had been sitting empty for years. It was everything I had ever dreamed of: spacious, full of character, a little worn down, but charming. The attic, though, was something else entirely. Dust and forgotten items filled the space: old trunks, books, and boxes of things left behind by previous owners. It was up there, tucked in the far corner behind some old furniture, that I found the mirror. It was large, ornate, framed in dark wood with intricate carvings along the edges. At first glance, it seemed like a beautiful piece, an antique treasure that had been forgotten. But the moment I touched the glass, something about it felt off, like it was drawing me in, pulling me closer. My fingers hovered just inches from the surface, but I couldn't look away. It wasn't just a mirror. It felt alive in some way, like it was waiting for something. The first few days after moving in were normal. I unpacked, cleaned up the place, settled into my new life, and tried to get used to the quiet. But every time I passed the attic, I found myself drawn to that mirror. Something about it unsettled me, yet I couldn't resist. I'd stop and stare into it for minutes, sometimes longer. The reflection of the attic looked as it should: dim, dusty, unchanged. But then something shifted. My own reflection seemed odd. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. I looked too pale, too still, like I was just a little bit out of sync with the real world. I shrugged it off as exhaustion. It wasn't until days later that I noticed it more clearly. My reflection was aging. I hadn't been sick, hadn't felt any different, but the mirror seemed to show me a version of myself that was much older, with graying hair and lines on my face that weren't there when I looked at myself in my bedroom mirror. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, or maybe the antique glass was warped. But the next day, the same thing happened. I looked into the mirror, and there I was, still young in the real world, but in the reflection, I had aged even more. The change was subtle, but undeniable. My heart began to race as I stared at the woman in the reflection, my reflection, but she was wrong. I reached out to touch the glass, hoping it would stop, hoping it was just a hallucination. But the moment I touched it, the woman in the eye mirror smiled. It wasn't my smile. It was twisted, malicious. I pulled my hand away in horror, backing away from the mirror. My breath caught in my throat. The reflection didn't move. It just stared back at me with that same sinister smile. That's when the real terror started. As days passed, the changes became more pronounced. The reflection grew older and older, but I stayed the same. My reflection's hair turned completely gray. Wrinkles crept across its face. And the eyes, they became cold, lifeless. At times, when I looked at the mirror, I swore I saw her move, just slightly, an arm shifting, a head tilting. But when I turned away and looked back, everything was frozen again. And the worst part? The reflection started to act on its own. I would be standing in front of the mirror, looking at myself, when I noticed the reflection doing something I wasn't doing. It would laugh, quietly at first, but it sounded like my own voice, just wrong, distorted. It would blink at me, tilt its head in that unsettling way. And once, just once, it reached out, as if it wanted to touch me through the glass. I recoiled, in terror. I knew something was wrong. The mirror wasn't just reflecting me, it was reflecting something else, something separate. I avoided it as much as I could, but I couldn't escape it. It was always there, lurking in the corner of my vision, waiting for me. I tried covering it with a sheet, but when I woke up in the morning, the sheet was gone and the mirror was bare, reflecting the room and my reflection, unchanged. The reflection had stopped aging, but it wasn't still. It was moving, slowly, as if it were aware of me, aware of my every move. I could feel it watching me, even when I wasn't looking. I was being stalked by my own reflection, by something I had no control over. My desperation grew. I tried to destroy the mirror, to break it, but every time I tried, I couldn't. The glass resisted, as if it were too strong for me. I tried everything, hammering it, throwing things at it, even trying to burn it, but nothing worked. The reflection only grew bolder, its smile wider, more menacing, its eyes more hollow, as if it were enjoying my misery. Then, one night, the mirror became more than just an observer. As I sat in my bedroom, I heard the sound of movement from the attic, slow, deliberate steps. I tried to ignore it, thinking it was my imagination, but the noise continued. I walked up to the attic, my pulse racing, and there it was. The mirror stood in the center of the room, reflecting not just the space around it, but something more. The woman in the reflection was no longer just a reflection. She was moving toward the glass, her hand pressed against it. My reflection reached out to me, and my own hand, almost involuntarily, pressed against the glass in response. I felt the cold of the mirror through my hand, but I couldn't move it. I couldn't pull away. And then, to my horror, my reflection stepped through the glass. It crossed the threshold, emerging from the mirror and into the room with me. I backed away in terror, but there was no escape. The reflection, the thing that had been mimicking me, was now standing in front of me, smiling that twisted smile. I was paralyzed with fear, staring into the empty eyes of this creature, this thing that wore my face. And then it spoke, its voice a distorted version of my own, hollow and strange. "I'm you now," it said, "and you're nothing." I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My reflection, the real me, was gone. What stood before me wasn't me. It was the thing that had been masquerading as me, and now there was nothing left but it. I don't know what happened after that. I remember the darkness closing in, suffocating me, and now I'm trapped in this reflection, staring out at the world I can never reach. I watch as she, the real me, continues to live, aging, moving through life, while I remain frozen in this glass cage. But here's the thing. Sometimes, just sometimes, when no one is looking, I see her glance toward the mirror, and I see her eyes starting to look a little too hollow, a little too empty. Maybe she's starting to forget, and when she does, I'll be waiting, just like the reflection, forever. What do you think happens when you look into a mirror and see someone else?